The age-old question. When did Roose betray Robb? Up there with such questions as, who could defeat the mountain? When will Winds of Winter finally come out? And was anyone as good looking as Bobby Maiden's Dream Baratheon with his big hammer? Oh, Bobby. Oh, right, yeah. Roose, Robb, treachery, got it. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't already, and our Discord and Patreon are linked down below. Over on Patreon, you can get access to uncut voiceovers and videos early, and over in our Discord, you can get access to awesome like-minded people who love talking shop about fictional franchises. And that's everything, so let's dive in. Can you tell Tom wrote that intro? Before the when, it might be best to discuss the why, which involves taking a look at Roose as a character. We're keeping the tweed jackets and armchair diplomas to a minimum for this one in an attempt to avoid a 10-minute long segment discussing Roose's psychology, like we did in our recent Joffrey video. Hopefully the segment in that video is enough to back up that our pop psychology analysis is reasonably well informed. If you do want a Joffrey level dive into Roose and Ramsay's minds, let us know in the comments, we'll make it its own video. The guy displays enough traits of ASPD that I would bet actual money he is rocking the disorder. Unlike Joffrey and Ramsay, however, I'd posit Roose ticks more boxes for psychopathy than sociopathy. The reason this is important is because it denotes his motivations for betrayal. Without getting too much into it, psychopaths are often overly cold and callous, traits that fit Roose like a fucking wolfskin glove. But what's most important here is that they are generally ruthlessly opportunistic and often, but it's important to note not always, highly calculating in their actions, with much more refined self-preservation instincts than a sociopath, which I think is quite evident in Roose's consistent caution. What results is an individual whom is highly pragmatic and self-serving, only ever acting within their own best interests. The sort of individual that will keep their options as open as possible for as long as possible, and won't cause chaos for the fun of it like you typically find with sociopaths like these two twats, but only if there is something to be gained. This alone tells us Roose probably didn't set out with any intentions of betraying Robb, and for a good stint of the war is actually legitimately on Robb's side. This doesn't mean he didn't take every opportunity to grab more power that was presented, since he was clearly undermining the other houses by sending their men into the meat grinder instead of his own, but there's no outright betrayal here. He's still, for the most part, carrying out the orders of his liege lord. Turning on Robb from the start is actually an incredibly bad idea. Only Balon Genius Greyjoy would think otherwise, and it's down to these two factors. 1. Robb is winning the war. Not just winning, but absolutely steamrolling the Lannisters. While Roose brings the heftiest force to support his liege lord / king, he's not the difference maker at this time, and he knows the other houses combined can crush his 3,500. The loyalty of the Northerners to the Starks, apart from the historical frictional enmity with House Bolton, is well established, and turning at this point when the other houses are near full strength only guarantees them turning their attention away from the Lions and ganking Lord Bolton and his men with the attitude of, "You might have cost us the war, but we'll for damn sure see to it you go down before we do." Roose would become public enemy number 1, and he knows it. Number 2, this is the War of the Five Kings, not 2. Balon is a misanthropic twat, but there's still Stannis and Renly, both of whom are legitimate players making a bid for the throne. Stannis is a military genius, and Renly has the backing of the Reach at this point in time. If Roose turns at this point, he's not just got to gamble that the Lions will beat Robb, he's also got to chance that Tywin will defeat Renly and the colossal army of the Reach, or Stannis backed by the weight of his own balls. Neither seems likely. The war in the beginning is a free-for-all, but with one common enemy, the Lannisters. Unless you're Balon fucking Greyjoy, of course. Throwing your lot in with them right now is not wise. In fact, it's straight up suicidal. Especially at the start of the war when Tywin can't make his mind up if he's going north, south, west, east, and ends up stuck in Harrenhal trying to figure shit out. Nope, Roose is much better off trying to cozy up to the king of his home region, whom has entrusted him with leading the largest portion of the Young Wolf's army. It's far more advantageous and safer to gain favor and advance his house via kingly rewards for good service post-war, with the bonus of grinding down the other houses a little to increase House Bolton's dominance in the north.
Oh, I'm sorry. Was that the last of the Hornwoods? Oops. Looks like there's some land that needs bringing into the Bolton fold.
Further backing this, Roose always gives Robb good advice in the beginning, notably counselling against dealing with the Freys, which, to remind you, would have always betrayed Robb if he started losing, broken vow or not, and that shit's confirmed by George. And even when Robb palms off his advice, he does try to execute Robb's plan via the night march down the King's Road and the resulting Battle of the Greenfork. This battle often gets held up as an example of Roose intending to betray from the beginning. But, as much as I hate the skin-flaying bastard, he can't be blamed for the loss. Because it isn't actually technically a loss. What was a hollow tactical victory for Tywin was a strategic slam dunk for the North, who couldn't actually lose providing the Bolton-led army wasn't completely annihilated. Roose, who was involved in the planning, damn well knew this. If he'd won, he would be held up as a hero, and if he'd lost, he'd still done his actual job of keeping Tywin's eye fixed on him while Robb went to Mount Doom to destroy went to the Whispering Woods to capture Jaime. It was the opposite of the Kobayashi Maru, a no-lose situation. I think it gets undersold just how unfavourable that battle was for Roose and his forces, and without the intended element of surprise, it was kind of a hopeless situation for a single reason. Cavalry. The Lions had 7,500 horses to the North's 600. I don't need to be a medieval warfare expert to tell you that is not a balanced fight, especially if the infantry is forced to be the ones going hard on the offensive. Unless the surprise attack had actually worked and the Westerland's knights and men-at-arms were caught before they could get into their plate and on their horses, this was always going to hit the North hard. When you actually consider all factors besides Roose letting a few notable lords and sons get captured, and other houses taking the brunt of the unavoidable losses, he did withdraw in good order and minimized casualties. It pains me to defend this wanker, but yeah, it's a pretty sincere attempt to win a pretty one-sided battle. There's a bit of undermining in there to be sure, but no treachery. So, if he doesn't set out to betray Robb from the start, when is the tipping point? There are 5 key events that serve as prime candidates. As singular events, none can tip the scale, but as they pile on top of one another, they lay the groundwork for the straw that breaks the camel's back. The first is the Ironborn invasion of the North, but mainly Fion's antics at Winterfell. The fall of the region's capital is a crippling blow, and it for sure pissed off the Northern Lords that their homeland had been attacked. But it's in the supposed deaths of Bran and Rickon that really make betraying Robb a juicy proposition, as he has now been deprived of successors for the other houses to rally behind. The Ironborn invasion is actually pretty good evidence Roose hadn't committed to any betrayal at this point. While he didn't directly order Ramsay to sack Winterfell, he knew he probably would, and if it was his intention to claim it, why give himself the headache of needing to repair it after Ramsay's savagery? Again, this seems more like a case of how much can I get away with undermining than outright betrayal. The second is Robb breaking his wedding vow. This, of course, provides Roose with a disgruntled co-conspirator from within his own side, whom also has a certain degree of leverage to put Robb in a position of vulnerability. Looking back to the north, the Ironborn invasion hasn't quite finished snowballing, as that event also causes the third key treachery motivator, and that is Kat's impulsive releasing of Jaime Lannister in exchange for Sansa and Arya. With the Kingslayer as his prisoner, Robb had a boot on Tywin's neck, a bargaining chip that would have made the notion of a play like the Red Wedding unthinkable for the Old Lion, especially if Jaime was secured in Riverrun's dungeons with a loyal Tully guard, as likely would have been the case if Robb had to go groveling to the famously untrustworthy Walder Frey. The North would have made sure Jaime lost his head before going down, but with Jaime freed, Robb's all out of chips, and Tywin was now free to be the evil, dishonorable bastard we all know he is. The fourth is of course the abandonment of the Karstarks. The blow this inflicts isn't actually about the men Robb loses, it's more the symbolism of it. The Starks and the Karstarks are blood kin, and it's quite apt to say the Karstarks are kind of the little brother house to the Starks. To have them leave is a monumental blow to the Northern Lords' faith in their king, more so than it is a blow to Robb's army. Though, of course, loss of men is still undesirable, and it does make Robb feel the pinch a little. These are all detrimental events for Robb, but the final thread in attaching Robb's body to Grey Wind's head... it's the Mannis. Stannis, of course, has a bone to pick with Robb, but it's fair to say he has a much bigger bone to pick with Tywin and Joffrey. What Robb had in Stannis is what is often termed in war as an ally of convenience. Or to put it in words we all know well, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. As long as Stannis is a credible threat to the Lions, the window for betrayal is welded shut. Roose is unaware of all the blood magic shenanigans with Mel cursing Robb, and as a calculating man, he knows that Robb, even after all these blows, still has the multi-front offensive on the Lannisters, even if it's not coordinated with the Mannis. And on top of this, one last ditch effort card he can play should all else fail, so long as the Mannis retains a position of strength. Bend the knee. The thing is, while Stannis does indeed view Robb's declaration of independence as traitorous, Robb technically hasn't committed any actual treason, because he himself never swore an oath of fealty to Joffrey or Stannis that he then broke. Robb does have a way back into the Mannis' royal fold without losing his head. This is sort of proven true when Stannis rise to save the Night's Watch. Mance declared himself king and even directly opposes Stannis. But after his defeat, Stannis does in fact give him a chance to bend the knee and join him. If Stannis takes King's Landing and has the crown, he likely has Sansa. And if Stannis has Sansa, Robb has a way back to the Mannis' divine embrace without undermining his image and honor. Robb can capitulate in order to save his sister. And while the Northern Lords won't be ecstatic about it, they will likely understand. At the end of the day, the march south was motivated by a quest to save 3 Starks. With one irrefutably dead, another one missing beyond any reasonable capacity to trace, getting one back is the closest they can get to the original mission accomplished, and heck, they've satisfied their honor and pride because they've kicked the shit out of the Lannisters. It may not go down like this, of course. Robb might say, "Stop, Sansa," and dig his heels in as king, but because this is absolutely a possibility for Robb, Roose, as a calculating individual, knows any committed attempt at betrayal is going to get his head placed firmly on a spike by the one true king, especially if Robb is killed by his hand. Remember what Mannis did to this guy, and that's his best friend whose bad deed quite possibly saved his life. And so, this is the straw that breaks the camel's back. Blackwater. Every traitorous notion before the events of this battle are merely that. Notions. This one battle actually does as much damage to Robb's cause as it does to Stannis. It removes the very last safety net Robb had, a strong ally of convenience and a fair and just king of whom to bend the knee to if all else fails, and of whom would punish attempted treachery rather harshly. Blackwater also solidifies where lies the loyalty of the major wildcard region, with a gigantic army that Robb, despite his brilliance as a commander, alone with no allies or frenemies, his forces highly depleted, and his home turf currently occupied, cannot hope to defeat. Before Blackwater, you had most major regions either undeclared or standing alone. Up until this battle, Robb had options. But after the Menace is taken off the board as a credible threat, and Tywin's strength now greater than ever, with the Stormlands and, more importantly, the Reach back under the Lion umbrella, Robb is only left with one choice and no way back. Surrender is off the table, as that will likely get his own people turning on him even more, so he puts all of his eggs into one basket. He tries to win back the phrase. And thus, it is finally in Roose's best interest to betray. As soon as news reaches Roose of Stannis' defeat, the door is shut. Freys were meeting with Roose at Harrenhal, and the plot is hatched. Although Roose claims and feigns loyalty to Robb, Vargo maims Jaime Lannister. Further evidence he's thrown or in the process of throwing his lot in with the Lannisters. From all of this, we actually believe it's worth reassessing Roose Bolton's position as a player of the Game of Thrones, with Tom placing the man in the upper brackets as an A-tier level schemer. When looking back at the entire campaign, he never dedicates himself to one path or closes down options. He remains strong and valuable to both sides, and doesn't place his chips on red or black, or grey in this case, until the outcome is certain. Although Stannis' defeat at Blackwater is the last drop that causes the pot to boil over, it's not the sole factor in Roose's betrayal. Robb Stark's campaign is like that of the Titanic's maiden voyage. Both could sustain some big individual hits, but neither was capable of taking all of those hits at once or in quick succession. Look, there's Robb, and here's Roose. This is just our opinion, of course, but it's what makes the most sense to us. The floor is now yours.